Welcome back to Thriller Talks, where we explore some of the most spine-chilling mysteries, unraveling stories of betrayal, intrigue, and murder that keep you on the edge of your seat. In today's episode, we delve into a mystery that begins with what seems like an ordinary plane crash but soon unfolds into a sinister conspiracy filled with lies, greed, and the darkest depths of human ambition. This is the story of the hidden sand machine. It was a clear day in 2012 when a private plane carrying 4 passengers crashed onto a tranquil New York beach. The crash was catastrophic. The plane's debris scattered across the shoreline, and all 4 people aboard perished instantly. The passengers included the pilot, Joe, a businessman embroiled in a major corporate lawsuit, and 2 colleagues from a prominent law firm. At first glance, investigators believed it was a tragic accident caused by mechanical failure or pilot error. But as they examined the wreckage, a chilling revelation came to light. This was no ordinary crash. Something far more sinister was at play. Amid the debris, forensic investigators uncovered a startling clue. One of the passengers, a high-profile businessman, had sustained a deep gash on his thigh. Strangely, the wound showed minimal signs of bleeding, suggesting he was already dead before the crash. The autopsy revealed that he hadn't died from the impact of the crash. Instead, he had been murdered, struck on the back of the head with a blunt object, likely a wrench or similar tool. This chilling discovery sent shockwaves through the investigation. It was no longer just about understanding what caused the crash but also unraveling the events leading up to it. Who would murder this man? And why? And how did his body end up on the doomed flight? The businessman, known for his fearless approach to tackling corporate corruption, had made powerful enemies over the years. At the time of his death, he was locked in a heated legal battle against a major food corporation, accusing them of unethical practices that endangered public health. This lawsuit threatened to expose the company's secrets and destroy its reputation. Was this motive enough for murder? Investigators turned their attention to the plane's pilot, Joe, a skilled aviator with an impeccable record. Joe was well liked among his peers, with no known enemies or involvement in illicit activities. The airline's owner, Charles, described Joe as a loyal employee and insisted he had no reason to harm anyone. But as investigators dug deeper, cracks began to appear in the story. The plane's black box provided a critical piece of evidence. The recording revealed that the businessman hadn't initially boarded the plane with the other passengers. His phone went silent hours before the flight, raising questions about his whereabouts. Yet, his body was found in the plane's wreckage. This discrepancy baffled investigators. How did the businessman end up on the flight if he wasn't present during boarding? To unravel this mystery, the authorities enlisted the help of Sherlock Holmes, a brilliant consultant known for his unparalleled ability to uncover the truth. Holmes quickly deduced that the businessman had been murdered elsewhere, and his body was placed in the plane's cargo hold before takeoff. This revelation changed the course of the investigation. Holmes theorized that the added weight of the body in the cargo hold disrupted the plane's balance, potentially contributing to the crash. But why would someone go to such lengths? Was the crash an elaborate cover-up for the murder, or was it part of a larger, more sinister plan? The investigation took a darker turn when forensic experts discovered traces of rough, unweathered sand in the plane's fuel tank. This sand, unlike the fine grains typically found on beaches, was an unusual contaminant that could disrupt the plane's engine performance. The presence of the sand suggested deliberate sabotage. Holmes and Watson began piecing together the puzzle. Their inquiries led them to the corporate lawsuit the businessman had been pursuing. The target of the lawsuit was Big Jack, the CEO of a powerful food company. Jack had built his empire through ruthless business tactics, and the lawsuit posed a significant threat to his reputation and fortune. At first, Jack seemed like the perfect suspect, but when Holmes and Watson confronted him, they discovered that Jack was gravely ill and physically incapable of committing the crime. This revelation forced them to look elsewhere for answers. As Holmes delved deeper into the airline's operations, he uncovered evidence of a smuggling ring operating within the company. The planes were being used to transport contraband, including rare gemstones and illegal pharmaceuticals, under the guise of routine flights. This operation was a closely guarded secret, known only to a select few within the organization. Joe, the pilot, had recently confronted another aviator, David, about the smuggling activities. Their feud escalated, with Joe threatening to report David to the authorities. This revelation made David a prime suspect. Could he have silenced Joe to protect the smuggling operation? When authorities went to question David, they found his home abandoned. However, in his garage, they discovered a wrench stained with blood, a wrench that matched the wound on the businessman's skull. The evidence seemed damning, but Holmes wasn't convinced. Holmes believed the wrench was planted to frame David. The real culprit, he theorized, was someone with far more to lose, someone with intimate knowledge of the airline's operations and the smuggling ring. The final breakthrough came when Holmes uncovered evidence linking Charles, the airline owner, to the crime. Charles had been a key player in the smuggling operation, using his planes to transport illegal goods. When Joe and the businessman threatened to expose him, Charles devised an elaborate plan to eliminate them both. Charles murdered the businessman and placed his body in the plane's cargo hold, ensuring the crash would appear as an accident. He then sabotaged the plane's engine by contaminating the fuel tank with sand, creating a scenario that would leave investigators scrambling for answers. But as Holmes and Watson continued their investigation, a deeper layer to the conspiracy began to unravel. Charles hadn't acted alone. There were whispers of other individuals involved, possibly higher up the corporate ladder than anyone had anticipated. These were people whose greed and desperation for power ran so deep that they would stop at nothing to protect their interests. Holmes began to suspect that the operation was much bigger than a simple smuggling ring. The food corporation that the businessman had been suing was not just involved in illegal activities, it had deep ties to global trade networks, shady political figures, and corrupt law enforcement. The crash, the murder, and the subsequent cover-up were only a small part of a much more elaborate scheme. As Holmes and Watson dug deeper into the food company's financials, they uncovered evidence of illegal money laundering, tax evasion, and bribery that spanned across multiple countries. The business empire was built on a foundation of corruption, and the businessman's lawsuit had threatened to expose it all. Holmes now realized that the plane crash was the result of a well-orchestrated operation involving not just Charles, the airline owner, but a network of individuals working behind the scenes to silence anyone who stood in their way. The businessman had been murdered not just for his legal actions, but because he had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. Holmes and Watson confronted Charles one final time. This time, they had irrefutable evidence linking him to the entire operation. In a tense and dramatic moment, Charles finally cracked under pressure. His confession was chilling. He admitted to orchestrating the murder of the businessman, framing David for the crime, and sabotaging the plane in an effort to cover up the much larger conspiracy. But as Charles spoke, he revealed even darker truths. The network of corruption ran far deeper than anyone had realized, and even though Charles had been exposed, the true extent of the criminal enterprise was still out there, lurking in the shadows. The businessman's murder had merely been the tip of the iceberg. With Charles's confession in hand, authorities moved swiftly to arrest him and dismantle the operation. But the investigation didn't end there. Holmes and Watson continued to work behind the scenes, unraveling the remaining threads of the conspiracy. In the end, it was a story of greed, power, and betrayal, of people willing to do anything to protect their empire. But it was also a story of justice, of how the truth can never be hidden forever, no matter how well it's concealed. This chilling case serves as a reminder that sometimes the darkest mysteries lie not in the crimes we see, but in the shadows where they are hidden. What seemed like a routine accident was, in fact, a carefully planned murder that exposed a network of corruption stretching far beyond what anyone could have imagined. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the dark world of the hidden sand machine. If you enjoyed this in-depth exploration of a twisted conspiracy, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more thrilling stories from Thriller Talks. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep seeking the truth.